1. To give some background, a year ago my leader mentioned that he would like to transition off an inherited SSO implementation to Azure SSO in the next 3 years. Forward to 5/3/21, 3 months ago. Our SSO account rep reaches out and reminds us of the upcoming renewal date, 7/30/21. With COVID, we've been cutting back on annual expenses and want to save the money, so my leader said cut over by that date. 72 configured applications for 25 different systems with 21 different user groups and requiring 90% or higher company-wide Microsoft MFA enrollment was my self-defined success criteria. With how slow healthcare IT is for changes, impossible, right? Fuck it, let's make a plan and start calling for buy-in. I draft up a simple cutover plan listing which apps on what dates grouped by tier, user group, and expected complexity. Also write down who I need on as my A-team and who I need buy-in from. So I start calling up my fellow system admins. Conversations went like this. My leader wants to switch to Microsoft SSO by the end of June. I need you on board. I'll handle all change protocol, cutover config, communication, and support. Just need your buy-in. It's a pretty aggressive timeline, but if you can do it, let's do it. Cool. I've got the sysadmins on board. Time to call second-tier business owners, HR, pharma, healthcare admins, and such. Conversations go like, I've done some math. Our SSO system costs the company $500,000 a year on employee login time, renewal, server time, and support. We are switching SSO providers and are not renewing. If you'd like your application login to still function, I need you to agree to the timeline. What do I need to do? I'll handle it all, just need your written buy-in. Cool. I've got the second-tier owners on board. Last calls of that day were to my A-team, the service desk manager, architect, and IT marketing guy, all on board. The next day, for completeness, I set up a call with a VAR to see if they could handle the project. They sold us the original SSO project and tout their M365 expertise all the time. The conversation was subpar, and the quote for the work was 2 years of the renewal cost. Yeah. If the project didn't complete, we could blame them. But that is a mindset for the week. This is the point where I knew we had to handle all in-house. Over the next weeks, it was documentation, CCB, implementation, and scripting. With all healthcare systems, we may have many regulations and bureaucratic hoops to deal with. Authentication is a major part of non-repudiation, so I had to comb through all our audited procedures and get them updated. Thankfully, I was able to delegate some of the work. Change control went smooth except for the first one. The manager of IT project managers piped up when I was explaining the breadth of the project, its effects, and timeline. Long story short, they didn't like that I didn't request a PM that was going to have no idea what to do, and that we didn't have a vendor to fall back on to blame. Implementation was all smooth, even for applications used by every employee. I tell you what, the technical gymnastics I implemented to make a smooth HR cutover was a proud moment. The hiccup is when we got to the MFA-required applications, remote access. This whole time, my A-team had been communicating to end users about the cutover and the requirements around MFA, handling any and all issues, and providing exceptional support. Week 1 jumped from 1 to 40% enrollment, week 2 to 5 up to 50%. We needed 90% MFA enrollment by week 7. I had built a script to help visualize enrollment and create a distro of those not enrolled. So, day after day, we blast those who haven't enrolled, communicating procedure and deadline. Week 7, we are at 75%. Thank God week 8 wasn't the actual deadline. I've still got 4 weeks to get this done. Week 8, these people just didn't want to enroll. Pushed my timeline back for remote access apps, time to alert their managers, modify my script to pull their manager too. Write a new script to blast an email to the managers detailing percentage of their team enrolled, and name those who haven't enrolled, 85% enrollment. Week 9, working for the last 5%. So I start 2 weeks of PTO next week. Why I wanted an 8-week implementation. Blast another email to all managers warning them of potential work stoppage, and the people specifically. Managers were obviously not happy with their employees. Jumped to 96% enrollment. Time to cut over. Week 10, I'm going on PTO, y'all. But time to document and have our first official meeting. We set responsibilities, walk through what is left, who to talk to and how to implement, passed mostly to my architect. As expected, implementation hiccups. Week 11, fixing hiccups and standing up some internal architecture for Citrix. Week 12, full remote access, SSO, and FMA implementation. The 4% not enrolled are mad. But they had months of warning. Week 13, everything is done and we, the sysadmins, are happy. HR were surprised it went so smooth, and our CIO and CISO is over the moon about the SSO implementation. The only thing I will change in the future is more delegation. Hopefully, the skills in my team will be up to par to handle the aggressive timelines we are consistently expected to achieve by that time. Working in IT security is fun. 2. This morning, I got a call from M. M is the manager for some of the supporting staff, mainly housekeeping and the event organizers. Middle management, she is normally not allowed to access a dossier since she doesn't actually provide care. And the rule of thumb is no care, no access. M starts about how there's been an incident at one of our sites. One of our clients has threatened one of the staff. The police are involved and she'd like to have access to the medical dossier of this client. This is what happened afterwards. I'm not sure I can grant you access since you don't actually provide care for the client. Plus, the way our system is built would mean I'll wind up giving you access to the files of other clients as well. I'll talk to my team lead and ask him what he thinks. Can you log a ticket in the meantime? Sure, but it's really urgent. The threat was very serious, and there's information in that file that will help with the eviction. We break off the connection, and while she logs the ticket, yes, she did do that, I open a chat with my team lead and with someone from Control to talk about granting access, whether we should and what alternatives we can offer. Both Control and the team leader are not eager to grant the requested access. Team leader tells me to keep to the basic principles for access, which tell me not to grant a request. Control suggests that M should talk to the client's caregiver and ask for the individual relevant reports from them, which is actually a really sensible idea. Armed with this new information and considering the urgency, I decide to not react to the ticket but immediately call M back. Hi M, I have talked about your request with Control and my team leader, and I don't think I can grant your request. The information in a client's medical file is privileged and should only be accessed by the people who are involved with providing care for the client. Control had a good suggestion to contact the client's primary caregiver and ask for the relevant reports from her. I think that's very strange. My subordinates, the event organizers, have access to those files, so why can't I have access? Your subordinates have access because they're required to report on the client's behavior during activities that they oversee. But you don't organize or oversee events like that. So I have to call the primary caregiver on her day off to get her to make a printout of those documents. No, there's other people in her team. You can call one of the head nurses as well if you don't want to bother the primary caregiver on her day off. I still think I should have access. Now I have to get all this stuff printed out. That's not safe either. No, the nurse or caregivers can send you the information through the secure system that's in place for things like this. This is crazy. I'm the manager for these people, and they do have access to the files. Why won't you give me access? I'm not allowed to give you access even if you're their manager. I'm sorry, but I strongly believe it goes against the privacy regulations of our client to give you access. You don't need to see their medical information. It's my job to be the gatekeeper here, and I can't give you access. At this point, I'm pretty exasperated. I cut some bits out, and we've been going in circles for a while already. Well, fine. I'll go ask someone for access. But that means the police will not be able to do anything. On which she hangs up on me. I'm really frustrated, especially by that last sentence. It feels a lot like she is trying to blackmail and or blame me for any undesired outcome in the case. I call my TM after she hang up on me, and he has my back. After I've calmed down a little more, I'm going to follow the CYA protocol and document the shit out of this. I am also considering mentioning this to HR. 3. This story was back around 2005 or 2006. I had been at my job for a few years and was still new to things in general. Because I worked at a mom-and-pop shop, budgets were next to nothing and often corners were cut, but I digress. We sold a large number of machines with Asus M2N-based boards. These had, I think, the 6000-based MCP, or whatever NVIDIA called it. They were cheap, and yes, they all eventually failed. XP was still ruling supreme, and most builds had XP Professional. We had a VAR that bought machines from us. VAR is a value-added reseller. He was easy to get along with and didn't mind sharing tips and tricks and info on things we needed. Our VAR had configured an office setup for a mining company. Maybe they didn't do the actual mining, but they managed the resources, because they oversaw various sites and locations. I remember the day clearly. It was snowing, and a young lady brought in, with her boyfriend, about 6 or so desktop machines. They had made arrangements for us to rush reload these over the weekend with the owner of our shop. I believe it was a Friday because it would have been around 3 p.m. when the mining office closed. So we had till Monday morning to get them reloaded. We had received an email about them, our service lead had it, and it was an excerpt quote from a chain of emails that were sent back and forth. We were told that data was not an issue, as the office had a server. I usually inspected machines before reloading them. Most of the machines were empty, nothing on them to speak of. However, one machine was chock full of files. I hesitated because if they had a server, why were these files here? We tried to get more info, but because the boss wasn't there on weekends and we had our instructions, you guessed it, we wiped every machine and reloaded fresh windows. Oh, and there was a spare HDD in the PC that had the files, but it was empty. I know I should have installed Windows on that, but it could have caused complications of its own if I did that. So Monday rolls around, they pick up the machines, and I figure, okay, everything is okay. A few hours later, though, the boss gets a call about missing files, and because he never handles tech issues, he passed it off to us. So we quickly realized that there wasn't a server, at least not the kind you would expect. I'll save you the torment. The PC that was full of files was a peer-based file share that held all the files. And we erased it, and reinstalled Windows over the top. I was livid. Somewhere something was badly overlooked. Being the nice guy I was, and because I genuinely felt bad, I did almost 16 hours of both in-shop and on-site recovery for that company. I didn't bill anyone. I did it out of respect, as I recall that my boss wasn't going to do anything, and essentially hang them out to dry. So I'm on-site recovering files, and of course, because this office doesn't spend big bucks, they don't use Outlook, they use Outlook Express, so the recovery app is recovering email files. Want to know the kicker? In the email string, our VAR clearly mentioned to our boss that the one machine hosted all those files as peer file server, and should not be wiped. Our boss decided not to forward the entire string of emails, otherwise we would have been able to read through and realize that drive should have been left. I talked with VAR sometime after the incident, and he appreciated what I did. He understood why I did it, and he didn't have healthy words for what went down. He still did business with us, as he was able to get decent prices through us. But we essentially never serviced his clients after that. He basically treated the boss as stupid because he clearly outlined details, and the info was not forwarded. Now, I don't have any info as to what the VAR set up in terms of backup. It could be the company declined. After the incident, I gave them a cheap RAID card, hooked up the extra spare HDD as a sort of extra layer of protection, and tried my best to get the files. I think I got maybe 20 to 30% of the files. I left that company in 2010 or 2011 because they had been bought out by some guy that was looking to create a local rival to Best Buy by buying out local companies and making a conglomerate of some sort. But the company was especially stupid when it came to management. The owner consistently was going from one idealism or concept to another, as if he was chasing the ultimate ethos that would work magic in his stores. We would get emails telling us to watch some video and adopt the philosophy in our work. One example of stupidity that, yes, in hindsight, I could have taken action on, but oh well. Certain full-time staff, like Tech Number 1 for my last post, were upgraded to salary. With salary, they got to choose what time they started and left, to a degree. Because the store was open 8:30 to 5:30, they had to be there for 8 hours minimum. And they got an hour for lunch, but if they forgo the full hour lunch, they could instead do 9 to 5. Well, that means there was a full hour gap opening and closing. So it was my schedule to be there the full 8:30 to 5:30. I figured all was good. I put my timesheets in, I got my paycheck, but one day the HR manager calls to ask why I keep adding extra time to my days. I explained to him that I've been told to be there from opening to close because there is an hour gap with no staff. He tells me he's been removing the extra time. Yeah, I was just done with the company. Anyways, you got my first data recovery nightmare and a bonus story about a stupid company. 4. I'd moved to another job by this point, but the company also did house calls. The owners were some of the best employers, if not the best, I've ever had. A call came in and got routed to the shop looking for someone to make an on-site tech support call for a Windows 98 machine that wouldn't connect to the internet. According to the front desk, the customer was bedridden, and this was their primary means to connect with the outside world. Okay, sounds great. Sounds like something we'd fix a dozen times a day. Get to do a good deed and help somebody. Feels good, man. Ah! So I show up at the house, ring the bell, and a woman opens the door with a little excited gasp. "Oh, thank heaven you're here. He's been going crazy because he can't get his downloads from Alt.bin on Usenet." I blink. Okay, this person knows what Usenet is and apparently what it's for. That's unusual. "I thought maybe it was his Forte Agent Usenet reader, but the PC wasn't getting an IP, so I reset WinSock, and the dial-up works, but the PPP daemon doesn't get addresses. If I dial up using Hyperterm, I get a prompt, and if I log in, I get the PPP sequence, so I don't think it's the ISP or the modem." My jaw drops and I stare blankly. Well, that's more troubleshooting than most people normally do. So do you work in IT? "No, I'm his home care co-worker, but he's been my only patient for 4 years, 4 days a week, 12 hours a day. All he does is watch news and live on his computer." "Wow, so how do you know how to troubleshoot WinSock?" "I've had to learn all this just to survive, but when he dies, I'm going back to college to go into tech. I hate healthcare now. I used to love it, but not anymore." "Wow, well, it's a great career, but you still have to deal with people." "Yeah, but eventually they go away. You know, like in days or hours, not years." I never thought about that. Yeah, I guess that's true. Side note, he died, she went into IT. She still is in IT as of a few years ago. As this conversation is taking place, we're standing in the entryway. She takes me down the hall into what would normally be the living room. It's an all-white room with white curtains containing 5 pieces of furniture, a 55-inch rear projection TV, a floor lamp with what must have been a 500-watt full-spectrum UV bulb. I swear I needed sunglasses, and I think I could feel the heat from 10 feet away. A side table, a monitor, keyboard, mouse tray on an articulated arm attached to a rolling stand, an oversized hospital-style powered bed. In the bed was the largest person I've ever seen in my life. The gentleman had to have weighed at least 600 pounds. This is not shaming, this is just a description. The bed appeared longer and wider than a normal bed, and he filled it completely. Best of all, wait for it, he was naked. I suppose, technically, he wasn't exposed, as he had a sheet draped over his nether regions, but everything else was soaking up the fake sun coming from that blinding floor lamp. I don't think he was cold, because it was probably close to 80 in that room. It was a thin sheet. Though somewhat disconcerting, I started troubleshooting. He had a 128K ISDN connection, and as I worked, and he explained why he needed the computer working, to which I made appropriate interested noises at various intervals. Annoyingly, I kept having to wipe everything off, the floor, the computer. Everything was covered with a whitish, chalky dust. Weird. I reached a point where I had to pull the add-on serial card common with external ISDN modems. The inside of the case was entirely coated with dust, thick enough that I couldn't read the silkscreen printing on the board, so I took it outside, grabbed a can of air from my rig and blew it clean. I used almost an entire can of air, and of course the wind shifted several times and blew clouds of dust back on me. Back in the house I went. Replaced the serial card. I kept lots of spare common components with me, hooked everything up, reset WinSock again, and the TCP configuration dialed up, and voila! All good. Got all my stuff back in my jump bag and toolbox, gave him the handwritten T&M invoice, told him he'd get the final bill in about 7 days, and headed back. En route, I called in because we were short in field tech, and there had been a discussion about my heading to another business customer, depending on when I was done. I kept having to cough and clear my throat as I was walking to the front desk. A bit about the personality of the front desk person who answered the phone, one of my favorite coworkers ever. A hilariously feisty redhead. She had great business acumen and super customer service skills. But along with these, she was also possessed of a sick, twisted sense of humor that took great delight in everything from scaring the crap out of any and everyone trying to gross out everyone in the room. If she could say something to make someone barf, gag, or scare them into peeing their pants, she considered it a good day's work. "You okay?" Yeah, that house was just full of dust, like powdered chalk or something. I mean, I can feel it on my teeth and see it on my skin and clothes, it was so thick. "Was that Jeffrey's house?" Spidey sensed warning of impending doom. "Yes? Why?" "You know about 90% of household dust is dead human skin, right? His house is probably like 99%.
You're sick? Are you serious?"
"Yeah, you just ate a mouthful of Mr. Jeffrey." I start hyperventilating at this point, while trying to simultaneously not gag and throw up in my car, find a water bottle, find a parking spot to throw up, rinse my face off, and shake off as much of the dead human skin as I possibly can. I hear a tech in the near background.
"Well, who are you talking to? And who did they eat?"
"Oh, he was just at Jeffrey's house, and I told him all the dust was dead skin." Later that evening, my wife, who works for a surgeon and always has interesting stories. "How'd your day go?" "Kinda meh, I guess. Got to eat a guy, though." "Well, I couldn't say I didn't inhale. How was your day?" It was months before I stopped hearing, "Hey, leave a bite for someone else," or "Don't eat too much," every time I left the shop on a call. 5. I accidentally ended up in the phone book as a computer repair company. I swear this happened. It was around 2007. The company I started had a technology-type name. So when I declined repeated attempts at obtaining a Yellow Pages ad, and almost never answering my phone because I was busy kickstarting my business, the crazy marketing people at the local Bell company threw me into the computer repair services category of the published directory. And I was at the top of the list alphabetically. Why me? After a while of ignoring the calls, well, I just went with it. The company I was starting was having funding issues, and was slow to develop, so I just started going on service calls when someone would call me to fix their computer. I just charged a lot, and made it worth my while. So, I got a call with Microsoft Outlook corruption, or something really lame like that. Remember Outlook.pst files? Pretty sure it was some kind of software issue on a Windows XP box. I went to the house in a very rural area, way out in the boondocks, super slow internet. The lady was older and not very computer savvy, but I needed to save her PC from corrupted data files or some such. I think it had a failing or full 40 gigabyte hard drive, or something that would take a lot of time to fix but was not a difficult problem. The main issue was her business was down, and I had to get it back up again, even temporarily. Then we got to talking. The lady really needed her computer fixed because there were business transactions at stake. She was selling big-ticket items, and the customers needed her to answer questions and ship the items fast. I am not normally one to get distracted from business and let my eyes wander off my task, but this was different. I was apparently inside the lair of one of the most sacred and illustrious sites for crystal power in the whole country, because my customer would speak some kind of enchanted spell over these crystals that she found, and sell them on eBay for about 100 times their worth as minerals. She pointed around the eerily dim room at her numerous crystals that were given spooky names, and explained that each one had been carefully energized by whatever power she claimed existed in the area. Her house was full of these colorful crystals, some sitting under triangles or hexagons or strange lighting. Maybe she grew them, I don't know. But sure enough, once I fixed the PC, probably a full hard drive, I perused her broken email box. I came across numerous excited emails with questions pertaining to the power or energy of a particular rock that she was selling. I'm talking about crystals in the $100 plus range. She bragged about crystals going for well over $200. Well, I hate to say that I was her enabler. I eventually got her PC running again, installed a new hard drive, charged her an arm and a leg for my time, and went back to screening my calls. No sacred crystals were harmed in the making of this video. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Terrific Tales of Technology, episode 22. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Alright, I do believe I have a birthday shout-out to do today. Well, not today, I think the birthday was a few days ago, but it was requested that it go in a tech video, which, for the record, I cannot always guarantee. You can ask, but sometimes it might just end up in whatever video I'm able to do. There we are. Okay, right. This shout-out goes to John. His birthday was on the 9th, but I'm going to wish you a belated happy birthday, John, as I understand you rather enjoy these videos. I hope you had a great day, and as has been established, I've decided, it has been decreed, you can take it to the president of whatever country you have, or your prime minister, or your queen, or maybe it's just some bloke named Steve, whoever's in charge. You can tell them that Hellfreezer has declared all over the world, if your birthday is in December, it is a birthday month, and you can celebrate all month. Which means I get to sing happy birthday to you anytime I please. So here we go. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear John. Happy birthday to you. Alrighty, and I think we'll wrap things up there for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.